Hey, welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddard. Very excited today to introduce to you a gentleman who's done some really, really impressive things. Lives in a city that I'm very fond of, Houston, Texas. I'm going to introduce him here in just a minute. Let me just remind you the purpose of this show. It's to help you think bigger. That's the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I know that when I think bigger, when you think bigger, something amazing happens is that our actions start to change. When our actions change, our results follow. And then bada boom, bada bing, what ends up happening is our impact also follows suit. And I'm thrilled and committed deeply to help anybody who listens to this have a life of deep, deep impact. And today's episode is going to be a special one because we have somebody with us today. His name is Daray Olaleye. He is out of Houston, Texas. And his background is he's actually a real estate entrepreneur and business coach. He helps people through the power of real estate investing build their ultimate ideal life. So I want to thank Daray for being on the show. How did I do with your last name, Daray? Did I do okay?
You knocked that out of the park. You did perfect.
Dinner. I think it was an 8 out of 10. But I definitely want to thank you for being here. For those that are curious about Daray, you're going to see how intelligent, articulate, and just generous this man is. His website is beforethemillions.com. If that doesn't tell you enough about what a genius marketer is, I love the name, beforethemillions.com. He helps people move in the direction of having the millions. So he meets them before the millions. So impressive, my friend. Now, you are also the host of a podcast. Let's talk about that a little bit. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, it is actually called Before the Millions. So it's all branded Before the Millions. So it's real easy and simple to get to.
Fantastic. So be watching for that. In fact, I would encourage you to go subscribe to that because the problem that we're really going to solve today is that you as a real estate agent have a number of people that are in your sphere. Let's say the average agent has anywhere between 250 and maybe 500 people in their sphere. And those people tend to sell a home every, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And maybe they refer you, if they're really good, maybe once a year, okay? Imagine this. Those same people who use you fairly infrequently are maybe very disgruntled in their job. They don't love what they do. They're tied to a big income, so they can't necessarily get out of it, right? They can't necessarily just go do anything else. I'm going to move my microphone up here a little bit better. This is going to be better audio now. They can't actually get out of their job, presumably, right? They feel a little bit stuck. And what Daray has the ability to do is to teach these people to do something that is going to help them get the ideal life that they want, number one, and two, become a very frequent customer of yours. You're going to help convert much of your database into investors. So anyway, before I go any further, let me just thank Daray for being on the show today. I'm really excited to have you here and to delve deeper into this topic.
I'm excited as well, and thank you for having me on, Justin. I cannot wait to hopefully add some value to your listeners. And I think that you bring up a very, very prominent subject matter. And I don't think that most agents kind of think about their business in terms of kind of how you laid it out. Now, let me ask you a question really quick, Justin. When it comes to, because you work with quite a few agents, whether you're interviewing them or you're actually working with them in the business, but what would you say is the number one lead gen source for agents these days?
Their personal sphere. People add in all kinds of other methods, whether it be internet leads. Now, again, it's different for each agent, but if you go to the businesses that have been here the longest, that are sustainable businesses, they'll say that the majority or even their easiest business comes from their friends, family, past clients.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct. I mean, that you hit it right on the head. And I've spoken to many of agents, right? And some of them really, really just now starting out, and they you have this, and it's kind of a mindset thing. I'm glad I'm on the Think Bigger podcast, because when most people enter an industry, they enter a business, their first mindset is, well, I don't want to bother my family. I don't want to tell my friends. Let me make it first, right? Let me get a couple of deals done first. And you kind of, family and friends are kind of the last people that you may want to turn to. But as an agent, I think that you said it best, and I've seen some of the most successful agents work their sphere like no man's business. I work with an agent today, and he literally gets 90% of his business off of referrals. So your sphere is a very, very, very key ingredient to making sure that you're first to mind when somebody wants to buy or sell their home. Now, as for investors, it's definitely important for you to have an agent to work with. So you positioning yourself as an agent who does work with investors is super invaluable. Again, I always tell investors like, hey, I want you to find an agent to work with that works with investors, because they're going to have certain quirks and certain nuances in their system and how they go about doing things that a normal agent wouldn't, right? They're also look out for agents who have investment property, because those guys for sure are going to be able to help you through that journey if you're just now starting out. So those are 2 quick tips that I want to give off to the listeners real quick before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, no, I love that, because again, if you can start to look at your sphere differently, right? Oftentimes people look at them as if, like, what are their real estate needs for their personal residence? And then the next step is, I want to be the person that they think of when they, when real estate comes up around them. And I think the invitation that both Daray and I are making to you is to look at everybody in your database as a potential investor, and maybe someone who doesn't like their career to the point to where that's all they want to do. I had in my preparation for interviewing Grant Cardone, I was listening to one of his other interviews, and he was talking to a gentleman who's probably created the largest Airbnb training platform in the world, Brian Page. And Brian, over the past couple of years, has made $7 million on his Airbnb education tools. And Grant was like, "That's impressive." He said, I'm obviously in the education business as well, but he said, what's far surpassed my education business is my investing business. And I thought about that. I was like, at the end of the day, we all exchange time for money until we become an investor and our money starts to work for us. And I think when real estate agents who naturally get that, right, they live that, they, like many of them, are investors. When you start to really take a strong stance of educating your personal sphere about the power of being an investor. Now, it may be an investor on the side of what they do, or it may be them starting to position themselves as being an investor as the only thing that they do. I think, number one, it differentiates you from the rest of the real estate agents out there, is that you're not just here to market and sell the home that someone's asked you to market and sell, but you're educating people on a new and better way to live, which, let's go into that, let's talk a little bit about that, Daray, as far as your passion. Your coaching is taking people from like disgruntled employees of jobs or businesses that they don't love and moving them into an ideal life. And I want you to share this. And as you share this, I want to invite my audience, right, many of whom are real estate agents, to be thinking about what you can be learning from Daray in order to be teaching your sphere similar principles. So Daray, please tell us, why is it that you teach people what you teach them?
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question. A lot of it, and I think this is something that stems from a lot of entrepreneurial journeys. A lot of it started because of my discontentment, right? I used to be a Big Four accountant, and I worked about 70, 80 hours a week for an accounting firm auditing the financial statements of some of the biggest real estate companies in the world. So I wore a suit and tie to work every day. I would travel at the drop of a dime. They tell me be in San Francisco for the next month, pack your bags on a Sunday, you'll be there on Monday. It was crazy. They would feed me. Again, some of this is going to sound good. A lot of this to me sounds bad. Yeah. They bribe you with food, right? If you've ever been in a corporate setting, you get bribed with a lot of food, a lot of fine dining and things of that nature. They want to stuff your face so that you continue working, right? So I remember that San Francisco trip, I was working from maybe 8 a.m. till about 2, 3 a.m. every single night. So it wasn't, I didn't even feel as though I was in San Francisco. And you would think that you have the weekends off, but hey, you have to meet deadlines. So Saturday and Sundays, yes, we were working both of those days as well. So again, I was locked in a cubicle. Pretty much, if I was awake, I needed to be in that cubicle. And I predicate myself on lifestyle design. I love to travel. I love trying new cuisines. I love being in different countries. I love going on sabbaticals, right? That's kind of the vision I've always had for my life. So when I entered corporate America, I was just like, man, there's so many restrictions. Yeah. This is not what I thought this would be, right? I had a life plan. I was told in college that I needed to go work for the biggest, baddest accounting firm in the world. I was told in college that if I worked there for 15 years, I'd become a partner. I'd start making $500,000 a year. I was told in college that once I did this, I would be amongst the 1% of people. I'd be super successful and I'd enjoy my life. About a year into that process, I realized that they were totally wrong. This is the worst thing ever. I didn't want to be here. I hated everything about my life. So I naturally I started to find a way out. But it wasn't until one day a woman, and I call her my guardian angel. But she had no idea what I was going through. She had no idea of the mental torment and the demons that I was facing on a day-to-day basis going into work. And we don't have enough time to get into some of the things that transpired. But just know I was in a very bad situation. And my whole adult life, I hadn't read a single book, Justin, not a single book. I tried to read, what was that book? I tried to read 48 Laws of Power. I just couldn't stick to it. I would read chapter 1 at 18, at 19, at 20. I just keep reading chapter 1. I could never get through it. Like, it's so hard to read a book, right? But she handed me Rich Dad, Poor Dad, for the very first book that I picked up as an adult. And it was like the unspoken language that I had been trying to speak for so many years. It was like the manuscript to the life I wanted to live. It was just like, you just handed me my entire life on a platter. Since then, I read about a book a week. I read over 100 books, and I'm a book fiend. I think we just talked about some of the books in your book collection. I love books, right? But it all stemmed from that book, and it all stemmed from that discontentment. And reading that book, it kind of put myself in alignment. Like, it gave me a blueprint. Again, it didn't tell me exactly what to do. Rich Dad Poor Dad doesn't do that, but it gave me the idea. It gave me the concepts to start looking for, right? So when I started learning those concepts, I started trying different businesses, start testing the market. I started figuring out, how can I create my ultimate lifestyle design? How can I get back to traveling, right? So while I was in corporate America, I did a little travel. I did a ton of travel for the company, but I wasn't able to go abroad for a month, right? I wasn't able to do the things that I want to do for the rest of my life. I was like, how can I get to do this? Well, obviously in this day and age, we have the internet. We have a ton of ways to operate our businesses solely from a laptop. Like, we're doing that today, right? I have an educational platform, a 6-figure educational platform, and I do all of that online. I could do that from anywhere in the world, and I don't need to be stationary. But it didn't start like that, right? It started by creating 6 to 8 businesses, Justin. Literally, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in April. I closed on my first property the very next month, less than 30 days later. No real estate experience whatsoever. That's how hungry I was. The next month, I opened my first business. It was a drop shipping company. The next month, I opened a Kindle publishing company. I opened a lead gen company. Like, I started business after business because it's like I now had something to aim towards. And I knew that one of these businesses, and this is kind of the trap I fell into, I knew that one of these businesses would hit. I knew that if I just stuck it out long enough, right? Because I was a brand new business owner. I knew nothing about business. I knew nothing about real estate. I mean, you would think, and this is a common misconception with accountants, oh, you're an accountant, do my taxes. Till this day, I couldn't do my own taxes. Like, that's not something that you're equipped with as an accountant. So even as an auditor, auditing the financial statements of some of the biggest real estate companies in the world, I was still very green. So I opened up a ton of businesses, and I didn't know that businesses cost money, that there's large marketing costs involved. So I have about 8 businesses running that are making literally $0, and I'm spending thousands of dollars in marketing every single month. So I went from a disgruntled employee to a disgruntled entrepreneur / employee, because I still had my full-time day job. So this is kind of the early stages of my progression as I started trying to figure things out. And I started trying to figure out, how am I going to create the ultimate lifestyle design to where I can be on any country, I can do anything I want, I could operate my business from a laptop and a cell phone, and I can be fulfilled. Because I tell you what, Justin, when I was working at my Big 4 accounting firm, I was working half of the year for the government, I was working the second half of the year for the bank, and the entire year I was working for a company, and I wasn't seeing the fruits of my labor. I wasn't seeing the direct impact that I was having on people. I wasn't seeing the direct impact I was having on the companies that I were auditing, right? So I'm just adding up numbers to make sure that they pan out, right? So I don't really see the end goal. I don't see the bigger picture. So again, I say I'm working half the year for the government because literally almost half of our money goes to taxes. As just solely an employee. When you're not a business owner, half of your money goes to taxes. The second half of the year, I'm fresh out of college. So everything else is going to the bank in the form of student loans, car notes, if you have a mortgage, or if you pay rent, that all credit card bills, right? So the whole year, I'm just like, dude, like, I'm working for somebody else. And then to top it off, I'm not even building a legacy for myself. And I was just like, this is the worst type of situation I could ever be in. I can't see myself doing this for the next 30, 40, 50 years. There's no way I can see myself doing this for the next year. So I needed to figure out a way to get out of that conundrum. And that's why I turned to real estate. And that's why real estate, I believe in. People always say it's the dumb man's way to wealth. And I believe that because I'm not the smartest in the bunch, but I figured out certain key concepts that really, really work. And that's what we're sharing today. And that's what hopefully your audience has picked up over the course of time. And that's what they're continuing to hone in on as they kind of pursue their ultimate lifestyle design. Because at the end of the day, what's the point? If it's not for you to be happy, for you to be able to provide for your family, for you to do the things that you want, what's the point, right? So that's why my biggest premise is lifestyle design. And I'm glad that you asked me that, glad that you touched on that, because lifestyle design is super important for every single one of us.
So friends, hopefully you've picked up on, there are people that you know around you that are in the situation that Daray was in, right? Life looks rosy from the outside. They've got a fancy job, working for a fancy company, get to travel for work, yet inside they're miserable, right? They're not living the ideal life that they want to be living. And you can help them, right? You're on the front lines of real estate. Right, we talked about this before, Daray, is that, real estate agents, one of the key advantages that they have is that they're literally like first to know about properties, right? They're first to know about good deals, and they live and breathe the numbers of real estate, so they can see good deals better than the rest of us can. And I think as you start to educate people about real estate investing, about the power of having your money work for you as opposed to you always working for your money, you're going to start to get some people that are going to come to you and they're going to ask for mentorship. They're going to ask for the help. And, let's talk a little bit about maybe a key step or two. First thing that somebody could do and I'm sure your coaching programs go, much more in depth on training people on how to be lifestyle entrepreneurs using real estate. But is there one or two quick lessons that you can share with people, either a mistake or an opportunity that a lot of people miss when it comes to getting started in being a real estate investor?
Yes. So let me share an opportunity.
Okay.
And this opportunity, maybe we can go to a mistake as well, because I just thought of a few. But this opportunity lies where opportunity lies with most internet businesses. Right? As a real estate agent, you may not think that you have an internet business. You may not believe that it's an online business, but I beg to differ. I believe that you have an online business, or you can formulate it to be an online business. The backbone of most online businesses, the ones that are really profitable, their backbone is not a Facebook group. It's not Instagram. It's not Google Ads, right? Their backbone is their email list. Okay. Most real estate agents, they may or may not have an email list, but I guarantee you most real estate agents do not have a great follow-up process, right? So I'm big on systems. I'm less on like, hey, let's see if this works and let's kind of like fly by the sit. I don't even know the phrase, but I'm big on having a predictable system month after month. So one of the things that I would definitely implore your audience to do is to create some type of system. And going back to an email list, when you have it's that typical, hey, I'm on the beach, I don't have a whole lot of business going on this month, or you can be wherever, right? Maybe your goal is to close on 2 deals a month. Well, there's a month that you're falling short. But if over the past few months, over the past few years, you've been collecting emails, you've been interacting, you've been adding value to your potential clients, that month, you send out a 1-second email, right? Literally, these words have made me thousands and have made my clients thousands of dollars. I'm going to tell you exactly what the email should say.
Let's hear it. I'm excited. You got me fired up.
It's called the 7-word email. I don't know if I'm going to get exactly 7 words, but in the subject, it could be something like "Hey," or it could be like something like "Quick question," and then in the actual body, you're just going to be like, "Hey, do you still need help with real estate?" Mm-hmm. Right. So this is just a simple question to your entire email list, the list that you've been building. And you're like, well, Daray, how do I build an email list? Well, you're collecting business cards at meetups, right? Hopefully you're adding value on social media. People want to learn a little bit more about you. There should be some way for people to find out more about you, not just visit your website. There should be some type of intake process to where you're collecting data, right? Because again, you can create a Facebook group. You can do a lot of these things on other platforms, but ultimately you don't own those things, but you do own your email list. So there's value. There's thousands, if not millions of dollars in creating an email list and making sure that you're following up with these people on a at least a month-to-month basis. At least, hey, how's it going? Just checking up on things, making sure everything's okay. Or hey, I saw this white paper. I wanted to send this to you. I thought this was interesting about your market. Or hey, here's a question. What's your opinion? Again, sparking some type of interaction, sparking some type of authority. And I love controversial questions like, what should you list your home at? Should you list it at market? Should you list it slightly below market so that people can have a bidding war? Or should you list it above market so that maybe you get top dollar, right? And a ton of agents would be like, no, don't list it above market. A ton of agents would be like, list it at market. I mean, there's no one right answer. But having sparking that conversation, again, you're the authority, you're creating that platform, you're adding value to a ton of people. And I would easily just assimilate all those people to my email list and grow my email list from there. I have a client, he's actually in the process, he's been growing his email list for the past 6 months. And he gets at least 1 or 2 additional clients per month just by having an email list. So I think that is one super secret, but also super relevant. And everybody should be doing it already. Super relevant opportunity that you guys can take advantage of.
You know, it's interesting how much time and effort agents put on having these fancy HTML, beautiful newsletters that go out every month. And, you know, I think sometimes they're read. I think a lot of times they're probably not. And I love the simplicity. It's almost taking the methodology of a text message of like 7 words, right? Do you need help? Do you still need help with real estate? Right? How many ever words that is. But that concept of just super quick, and you could actually blast that out to everybody, and it feels very personal because it's not this generic thing. You're simply asking the question, do you need help with real estate? And my guess is your response rate's going to blow you away compared to the typical stuff that you're sending out.
Exactly. Because it's personal. It's personal. You know, it's one of those things to where even if I didn't need help, I may respond anyways, right? As opposed to your month. And I don't do those. Hey, there's a monthly newsletter. There's a monthly this. Like the way we talked about this before the call. I had a call with somebody yesterday, and he's an agent. Quit his job prematurely, which again, this happened to me, so I can't fault him. But he quit his job prematurely, and he's getting about a deal a quarter. And I asked him, not enough whatsoever. I asked him about how he's promoting, how he's getting out there, how he's spreading his name. He's like, yeah, I'm just contacting people. I'm going in groups and I'm telling them that I'm an agent, that I'd love to work with them if they ever thought about buying or selling. And he's consistent with that, But yet and still, Justin, he has gotten 0 deals from that. He's gotten 0 clients from that.
Which is about the equivalent of 1 a quarter, right? That's about the equivalent of like 0.
right. So I asked him, I was like, how about you turn it on its head? How about you take a different approach? How about you take a value-based approach? How about you start going into groups and you start actually helping people that may or may not ever become clients. You go and create posts that are actually beneficial to the audience that you're looking to serve, right? Because it's all about serving. Like the only way you can get to where you want in your business is by finding ways to serve these people. So how can you serve your target demographic if you're going after sellers? How do you serve a seller in the right way? What are a seller's top 10 biggest concerns, right? How much am I going to get? What's your fee, right? Like, I mean, that's it's not secret, right? But if you can break down like maybe like fee structure or how to get lower fees as a seller, like that's something like ask yourself this question as an agent. What is something that I can give away that most other agents would frown upon? What is something that I can give away that most other agents would frown upon? And if you can give that away, if you can give that value to your audience, I guarantee you'd start trickling in some good business, right? Because it's no longer, hey, I'm an agent, I can help. You're not adding any value. Nobody sees you as an authority. Nobody even knows if you're reputable and if you're going to do a good job. But if you're consistently adding value, and we're strictly talking about the internet right now, social media, but if you're consistently adding value, it's almost like a no-brainer, right? I think we talked about it before the call. Like there should only be 3 outcomes when somebody runs into your post and somebody gets added to your email list, right? It's either, hey, I want to sell my home. I want to buy a home. I want to work with you now. It's B, I know somebody who'd be a great fit to work with you now. or it's C, they're going to think of you 3, 4, 6 months down the line when they're in a coffee shop and they're talking to somebody who says, hey, I need to sell my home. I need to find an agent. And you're like, I know just the person, right? That's how much of a lasting impact that you should have on somebody. If you're adding that much value, you will have that impact. If you're just going around handing out your business card saying I'm an agent, we get those every day. You're not going to stand out from the crowd. And I think the best way to go about your business, especially online, is to add value.
Man, I could not agree more. I actually had a conversation with an agent yesterday who's newer, and I was like, how's it going? And he said, I don't see a lot of fruit yet. And I said, look, you're not going to. Don't be looking for it yet. You're putting the roots, right? We've all heard the story of the Chinese bamboo that spends years and years growing roots underneath, and all of a sudden it goes up, right? It's interesting. I had somebody reach out to me and they said, you are giving away way too much information. You need to like charge for this. You need to do. And I told him, I said, no way, and thousands and thousands of downloads. I don't know who's getting my content. I don't know who's using it for free and like never contributing back. I don't really care, right? I don't really care. I hope that's the case. I hope that everybody that listens gets value and their business improves. The reality is every time I do one of these interviews, every time I talk to a big thinker like you, Daray, I'm a better leader. I'm a better consultant. When I sit down with my agents, I'm a smarter person to be able to help them with. And it's interesting, just here over the past couple of weeks, I've had agents reach out of the blue to say, hey, I want to be in business with you. I don't know who these people are, right? But they know me through the show. And for a long, long time, there's been little fruit as far as what I do for a day-to-day job, but it's working. It's working before you can see that it's working. And I think that becomes a critical component for all of us to realize is that you need to just be really comfortable giving away more value than you're seeing that you're ever going to receive. And just be totally comfortable with that. Have zero expectation of getting anything in return. And once you start to do that, what will happen is it will surprise you is down the road, if you're patient, that the value will start to return. You'll start to see the fruit of your labors, but it's not going to be right away.
And I think you touched on a great point when it comes to seeing that value, seeing the fruit of your labors. I work with a property manager who manages people's Airbnb units. And last week he approached me. He was like, Daray, I'm thinking about the way one of his strategies, his lead gen strategies. So let's just say 70% of his lead gen strategy is cold calling, and then 30% of his lead gen strategy are meetups. So he was like, Daray, like I'm thinking about stopping the meetups. It's a ton of value and it's really good, but I'm trying to find ways to cut costs. Right. And let's just say the meetup is about $200 to book the room and do all the stuff. Yeah. And he's like, I'm trying to find a way to cut costs. I was like, okay, cool. So you're considering canceling this meetup? He was like, yeah, Daray, because I think I'd be able to save that extra $200. I could put that time and effort into something else. That's a great thought wave to have. But if you're not tracking your metrics, which he almost went ahead and canceled the meetups, and I'm going to explain this to you. If you're not tracking your metrics, if he wasn't tracking his metrics and I didn't walk through this process with him, he would have easily canceled the meetup, one of his most profitable lead generation sources to date. Okay, so let's just say he has 30 people go to his meetups, right? 30 people turn into, let's just say 2 clients. So I asked him, what's the lifetime value of a client? He's like, about $1,600. I said, okay, cool. So if every time you have a meetup and you're getting $3,200 worth of value, how do you now feel about the $200 that you're spending to make sure that these meetups happen? He's like, I never thought of it that way. I said, hold on really quick. And so what about your cold calling? He's like, well, I make about 400 calls during his lunch break throughout the week. And then we added up the cost that it takes for him to get to those 400 calls and to get clients. And we ultimately, long story short, we found out that it was more profitable, right, for him to keep hosting these meetups. In fact, maybe even host an extra one a month because he knows his metrics, because he's tracking his numbers, right? So it's just like, dude, like, no, like, don't stop this. Actually double down on this. See if you can do one a week, right? Because this is more profitable than anything else that you're doing. But he wasn't thinking of it that way. He was thinking about, man, I have to drive there. He was thinking about all the costs to actually rent out the place. He was thinking about the hassle, right? And at the same time, we added up and we followed his metrics, and his metrics told us exactly what to do. So as much as it's like, hey, like I totally support, hey, work it until it works. But all through that time, you need to be tracking what's going on. Going back to social media, like social media we think of it, me personally, Justin, I've thought of social media as an afterthought in my business for a long time. Like, it's just like, yeah, I mean, social media is a game. Like, come on, who has time for social media? Like, really, I have more important things to do, right? That's always how it's been. And then as of late, maybe like the end of 2018, going into 2019, I'm like, dude, like most of my revenue comes from social media. I need to stop treating it like this stepchild. Like, social media is the business. So let me start tracking it how I track everything else. So yes, a social media post, an Instagram story of what I'm doing, like it sounds like frivolous, but it's really not. And if you start tracking social media like you track everything else in your business, you're going to be able to start creating results in your business how you want to. Because again, if this mastermind member knows that, hey, if he spends $200, he's going to make $3,200 every single time he spends those $200. It's like clockwork because he knows that, right? Now he's looking at his goal to escape the rat race. He's looking at his goal to quit his job, not as a pie in the sky goal. Like, once I get to 30 clients, I'm going to do that. Now it's more of a once I hit 10 months, because I know in 10 months I'll have 30 clients. It's much more visceral. Like, it's tangible. It's like, I know, like, these are my metrics, rather than, well, we'll just see what happens. Once I get to 30 can take 3 years, right? But if we know the metrics, we can really start to create our destiny. And I think tracking your metrics, even in the early stages, even when you're just now putting out a whole lot of value and you haven't seen anything hit yet, and you feel like it's a waste of time to have these Excel spreadsheets, even in those stages is super, super important. So that's one valuable tip I can give to your audience.
You know, I think you're the perfect guy to be teaching this too, having come out of a Big Four accounting firm, a guy who loves the numbers. And I'm sure it was very systematic what they did, right? It was very intentional what your company did. And there's no doubt that skill set and that mindset, that some of which you brought to the table and others of which you were taught at the table, now you bring into teaching and coaching, lifestyle entrepreneurs, people that want to live the life that they want to live as a result of real estate. I love what you've shared. I think there's tons of value there, and being really clear. It reminds me of a business planning session I went through with an agent, and again, kind of mapped out where's your business coming from. And she was putting a lot of attention, a lot of resources into stuff that wasn't like the open houses that weren't producing fruit. Went back to her sphere, and specifically the business lunches she was having. That's where her business was coming from. And just by having that conversation, she was like, I'm able to reallocate my time, get back in my own living room on the weekend as opposed to someone else's living room, hoping that people are going to come by and spend business day lunches with people that I already like and appreciate from my previous profession. And those are producing all my business. Like, it was this slight pivot in this conversation that allowed her, it really opened up a big opportunity for her to reallocate her resources. So I'm 100% in agreement with what you're saying. Once you know the numbers, start to treat it like a real business, amazing things start to happen. Daray, I would love to spend more time with you. The problem is we're running out of time, and I'm gonna extend right now an invitation for you to come back at some near future date, because I just think you've got a ton of things to offer, and I'm so appreciative that you were willing to come on to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show and pour into all of us. I want to end with a signature question. You're obviously a big thinker. You've created lifestyle freedom for yourself, and now you're doing it for other people. What does a guy like you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your own possibilities? What does that look like for you?
That is a great question. And I will say that the power of, they always talk about your sphere of influence, and you've touched on that a few times on this episode. But the power of the 5 people around you, I mean, it's cliche, but it's so true. I remember reading Think and Grow Rich for the first time a few years ago. I read it like probably twice a year these days, but I remember reading that book a few years ago, and there was a concept in that book. I don't know if a lot of people remember it, but there's a concept in that book where Napoleon Hill talks about like an invisible mastermind. Like, it's not even like a real mastermind like we talked about today, like we're in masterminds and things like that, but it's like a mastermind in your head. And I found that concept really intriguing, and I actually followed through on that. And that there are people that you look up to in the industry that you're in. There are people that you want to model them. You want to take 1 or 2 or 3 things from their business or from their lifestyle and implement that in yours, right? And as you go through your journey, as you start to make some of these business decisions, you're not alone. So first and foremost, if you don't have a coach or a mentor, if you're not in a mastermind, get both of those things done ASAP, right? Yeah. But at the same time, not everybody that you look up to, not everybody that you glean knowledge from is going to be somebody who you're going to be able to hire. It's going to be somebody that you're going to be able to work with. So I do this to this day, even though I have a ton of paid coaches that coach me. I have a ton of people who coach me and have no idea who I am, right? So I've created like a mastermind of 6 people in my head, Justin, of 6 people who, whenever I have whenever I'm in the middle of a fork in the road, I have a business question. I'm just like, dude, like, what would Cliff say? Well, how would Cliff react to this, right? Or what would Grant Cardone do in this situation, right? And I don't know Grant Cardone. I've never spoken to him, but I've listened to his content so much. I've read all of his books to the point where it's like, I know exactly how Grant Cardone would respond in this situation. And I'd get Grant's feedback, and I get this other person's feedback, and I get this other person's feedback. And ultimately I'd be able to make a decision from there without consulting any real people. It may sound like fluff, but this is a very, very powerful concept, right? The power of masterminding in itself with actual people, which I do on a daily basis, is phenomenal. But when you're able to create that mental mastermind, it really helps you think through your business decisions. And I totally lost where we started, but I got so passionate about that question that's where I ended up. So hopefully
that's honestly an answer I've never heard. And I appreciate you saying that, because I forgot about that part of the book, but you're right. He goes through exactly what you articulated, which is you can have a group of people who you've never met before, but you study them to the point to where when you have a question, you go and say, what would Grant do, right? What would Gary do? What would these people do? And allow their advice that you've gleaned through reading their books, listening to their content, advise you and guide you. And what a powerful thing that you've shared with us today, Daray, and so many other things. And I'm very, very appreciative of your time and the expertise that you bring. Happy to consider you a friend. I was telling Daray before, I lived in Houston for 6 months, and one of the things I loved, I didn't necessarily love the climate, but I absolutely loved the people. And Daray, you fit right in with my with my memory of just the caliber of people in that city. So thank you for reinforcing that to me and for pouring into the Think Bigger Real Estate Show today. The best way for people to find you, Daray, is just on your website, beforethemillions.com.
Perfect. I love social media, as you can tell. So you can also find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Daray Olaleye, Daray OLALEYE, or if it makes it easier for you, beforethemillions.com/Instagram.
Okay. I love it, man. Thank you so much. Good here. I want to point out Justin Bozak, who's a buddy of mine out of New Jersey, making some comments here. Big things from big thinkers. Great accountability also, Daray. Good point. So appreciate it, Justin, for your comments today. Appreciate you, man, all that you do for the show. And we're going to end with these 3 simple words that is a charge and an invitation to each and every one of us, which are go, think bigger. Thank you, Daray, for your time. Been a total pleasure. Look forward to having you back at some point in the near future.
Thank you, Justin. It's been a pleasure, and it'd be an honor to come back on your show. I love the work that you're doing. I told you this before the show, that a lot of people are in business to make money to provide for their family, but it's the people like you and I. It's people like you, Justin, who have this give back component. Like you mentioned so well on the show, you have this give back component. It's those people who really thrive, and it's those people who really help the masses. So thank you for what you do as well, Justin. It's truly inspirational.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. Thank you.